Bible in front of you, do you?
I'm going to move it.
Okay.
Hi, John Solari, the Make That Actor Speaks. Listen, today we have a lovely guest, and before that, I just want to show you this book, Respect for the Actor. That's the first one. And this is, the name of this book is really a challenge for the actor. Uta Hagen. It's one of the best books on acting there is. And I take that from Salome Jens, who told me that too. All right? So actors out there, get this book, great exercises and everything. And this is not a commercial.
I remember Uta Hagen always being so respected in Hollywood, even 40 years ago. You know, when I was first starting out, she used to have a little blurb ad in the Hollywood Reporter, and all the actors used to go to learn from her.
And she was a beautiful woman too.
Yeah, she was an actress, of course.
Very good. Her and her husband, Uta, and Herbert Berghoff.
Okay.
It was with the famous studios in New York. It was HB Studios down in Greenwich Village. Actually, I was supposed to go there, but I was on work release from Sing Sing. This is a true story. I was on work release from Sing Sing, and they wanted me to take, because I had been doing theater. When I was in prison, they got me out. And I was doing what they call a street theater. And so some people got together and they were going to send me to acting classes. And they thought that there was too many people there. So they sent me to Terry Schreiber, who was another one. And really, Terry was great, but I really wish I could have gone to HB and studied with Uta Hagen. I'm a big fan of hers.
Well, you have a book, and that's like gold.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to talk about your book, but you have a fan. She was on the show a couple of weeks ago. Her name is Joyce Chow. Oh. And she does a lot of fashions and this and that. And the book you autographed for me, she took home with her to read. And she's doing Comic-Con this weekend in San Diego. Because I was going to surprise you and try to get her here. But she couldn't. And we were talking earlier about, just before we went on camera, about, you know, I was talking about the coloring now. Look, this looks like a sex tape we're making here.
So we started talking about, remember when San Fernando Valley was so famous for being the porn center of Hollywood, but I think they've kind of been forced out of the area pretty much.
Well, like I said, I've seen some in Nordorf out there. I forgot, I think, what was his cousin? I forgot the name of the show, but he had it running for the longest time. Something about Seymour. Seymour, my ass or
Seymour,
something.
yeah, Seymour, exactly. Seymour.
Actually, it was running on, I think, on Showtime.
Okay. I remember, you know, we were just talking about this fact that the porn industry kind of permeates here and there, percolates here and there. And you remember when Bill Cosby's son Ennis was killed in a roadside murder right off the 405 freeway by that bridge, and I forget the name of the
Mulholland, wasn't it?
The Mulholland exit, exactly. And I was working on that story. I was with the Enquirer at that time, and I can't remember how this contact came to me, but it was somebody that really knew something about the people that had done this. And he asked me to meet him wherever he was, you know, and so I went over to this house, and I walk in, there's all these girls, you know, walking around in the tiniest little bits of clothing and not. And I thought, what in the heck is this house? And it turns out this guy was some sort of a pornography producer and director, and I walked into this porn house. Oh my God. So the houses were here and there and everywhere.
Did they ever get was anyone ever arrested for his son?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think that anybody ever was. That was really
It was right on Mulholland.
Right off the 405 freeway. He came off that exit, he had to go up a ramp, and it was red. There was a bridge there, remember?
So I see it was where Mulholland Drive starts, I guess. That's where it really starts, I believe.
Yes.
And I don't, come to think of it, I don't really believe anyone was ever.
I don't think so. I can't recall. But anyway, of course, I spent many years as a reporter for the National Enquirer, and that's what I wrote my book about. All of that episode isn't in there.
Actually, we could show you a book, and
you can take that.
You need to have a thing in there. I'll keep my finger in there.
Okay, keep your finger in there.
And we can get Barbara's book here. Let's see if we can get it. I did it with there. I think that's a good way to get it with the,
Secrets of a Tabloid Reporter. That's the one.
As I said, Joyce Chow was, I lost the page. Oh, there it is. Good, you did.
It was just a little bit before that.
A little bit before.
Yeah.
Now you wanted to start reading chapters.
Well, I thought what we could do is we'll set it up, and I'll just read a little snippet that's maybe like the pith of the chapter. Not to go into chapter and verse, so to speak, but to kind of set it up and tell what the incident was and what that chapter really is all about. That way we don't have to sit and
I think that's more interesting, Barbara, because when you give a synopsis, and then I think the audience really likes to know, well, how did that come about?
Yeah, exactly.
What's the behind the scenes?
Exactly. So, you know, I thought I would read from a chapter which everybody always seems to like the best in this book, and it was a chapter called Into the Spider's Web. And this chapter came about because the very, very first assignment I ever got to go out on the road in pursuit of a story was in pursuit of Frank Sinatra. It turns out that Frank Sinatra was our publisher and boss's favorite celebrity. They had both come up on kind of the, I don't know if you'd exactly call it the wrong side of the tracks, but the wrong side of New York River, you know, River, New Jersey, and they liked Mr. Pope. Generoso Pope Jr. was the boss's name. He owned and published the National Enquirer. He was a genius of tabloid. He kind of invented the modern tabloid format. And, well, he liked to keep track of Frankie Boy, you know, and he liked to know what he was up to. So it turns out that, I don't remember if I submitted this lead or somebody did, that it would be interesting to compare Frank Sinatra's lifestyle with the performer that he was appearing with in Lake Tahoe, who happened to be John Denver. Now, you couldn't have a more opposite celebrity. John Denver was the Rocky Mountain High guy, you know, he liked camping, he liked hiking, he liked granola and all that kind of stuff, and Sinatra was the hard-drinking, womanizing, you know, smoking, rat pack guy, and he's just really a great guy, the gambling, the Vegas, the whole thing, the punching out photographers, and so this would be a very interesting story to contrast. And so I was sent out with another girl. She was a tryout reporter. She had just been on for a very short time. I was only on staff for a couple of months, you know, and so we were sent up to Lake Tahoe with a one-sentence brief, a one-sentence lead, we call it. Compare the lifestyles of Frank Sinatra and John Denver. That's all we knew that we had to do. Where do you start? So, I mean, I really thought the best way to do this would be, we were both young and cute, let's put on our little cute dresses and our little low cuts, and let's go out and kind of try to make it into the middle of the entourage, see if we can attract their attention and get next to Sinatra that way. So we set about doing that, and little by little, we got to meet them. The first stop that I had made was to a pit boss, because having covered Las Vegas for a few years, you know, and all the openings, I knew pit bosses always know everything. They know where the celebrities go and where they like to hang out and what their movements are. So, yeah, this pit boss kind of took a shine to me, and he told me where to find those guys. They like to go into this little dark bar called the Hideaway at Harrah's in Tahoe. So that's where I went in, and sure enough, I managed to attract the attention of one of these guys. And anyway, we worked our way into the center of the entourage, and I decided that the best way, they were speaking so fast and they were saying so many things I had to put in my story. And I had a little tape recorder. It was the first one I'd ever really had, and it was kind of, this is way before all the technology they have today. It was a little handheld cassette recorder. So I thought, if I can get this in my purse, and if I can prop it up and just open the zipper a little bit so that little condenser microphone is sticking out the top, I'll be able to get it word for word, and then I won't make any mistakes in my story. I'll be able to tell exactly how they spoke. So that is what I did. So I found myself into a booth in the Hideaway bar with Spider, he's the guy that likes me, Frankie Eyelashes, Charlie the Head, Jimmy the Hook. These were the guys. These were the boys. And so I got in there and managed to press the record button on my little recorder and prop my purse up there. And so I want to kind of pick up the story there.
Okay.
And I'll start to read. There were some other people in the booth, of course, but and there was a kind of a interesting group, you might say. And here is Spider. I'll start with Spider talking about, no, or was this Spider? Hold on. Yeah. This is Spider. He's talking, all the other people were talking about all the girls that tried to get next to Sinatra and all the different stuff Sinatra done. So Spider says to me, "What am I gonna say? Dames. But you, honey, you like the Spider now, don't you?" He oozed at me. Spider pushed his face into my hair as he whispered in my ear, and I hunched my shoulders and giggled, trying not to get unnerved. "The Spider likes you. You got class. You got more than air in your head. You wouldn't dump out on the Spider now, would you, honey?" Oh, Spider, if you only knew how dumped out upon you are going to be once I have all the info I need. I glanced down at the top of my bag, casually placed right next to me in the booth. From my vantage point, I could see the condenser mic peeking out, perfectly positioned to catch the flow of conversation. It was my insurance that I'd have the story word for word for Mr. Poe. Next in the booth was George Paulson, a clean-cut young law school graduate who looked like he could be Wayne Newton's kid brother. George had a career making commercials. He'd never met this crowd until today, and the only reason he was along was to chaperone his extravagantly gorgeous red-haired sister Georgette. On this evening, Georgette certainly appeared to be Pat Henry's woman, but I knew from covering the Hollywood beat that she was the wife of an ultra-millionaire LA businessman who had built and named after himself a medical center near the end of Hollywood Boulevard. Do you remember that one?
I'm trying to
John, it
remember.
was called the Muir Medical Center. Her name was Georgette Muir. Okay, anyway, from seeing them at Hollywood parties and from all accounts in the papers, Georgette and her wealthy husband had always seemed a happily married couple, and I had always thought of her as a refined society lady. But on this night, you wouldn't have guessed either of the above from her attire or her companion. She was poured into a cinch-waisted, calf-length black sequin dress, cut to the navel, and with a slash in the skirt that ran from the hem to 8 inches above the knee. Her flaming red hair was puffed out big, and she looked exactly like Rita Hayworth in her prime, only more so. She sidled up to Pat, cooed, stared at his lips as he talked, and oohed and awed at his every remark. None of this was lost on me. It was like I was trying to be with Spider, only more so. Despite his blasé, tough guy act, Pat Henry was riveted on her. By the way, Pat Henry was the comedian who always opened Sinatra's act.
For a long time.
For a long time. Georgette purred, "I'm cold." Pat gave her his jacket. Georgette purred, "I want something sweet." Pat had the waiters running for a dessert menu. When she left for the ladies' room, all I could think was, good, she left first. I'll have to do the same any minute now when my tape runs out. When she didn't come back for a while, Pat turned to one of the boys and said, "I wonder where Georgette is. I wonder if she's okay." He really cared, I observed. How sweet. When she finally reappeared, he said to the group, "Hey, I'm glad she's back in one piece. I forgot I had $5,000 in the pocket of my jacket. I got worried." Georgette cooed, "Oh, Pat, I should have tipped the bathroom lady more." Everybody laughed raucously. I giggled too, grabbing the diversion as a chance to look down at my handbag and check that the tape recorder was still positioned properly with its microphone peeking out. Suddenly, my heart stopped. The tape recorder began making a high-pitched, squeaking noise. I knew exactly what it was. Side 1 was used up, and the machine was signaling to turn the tape over. Did they notice that my eyes got as big as saucers and a cold sweat instantly appeared on my brow? I cursed my luck that the first time I had ever recorded a tape to the very end had to be now. I had had no idea an electronic signal would be emitted. A great feature if you're in a sit-down interview, but Not good if you're secretly recording a bunch of Sinatra henchmen with your tape recorder hidden in your handbag. I acted instinctively, grabbing my purse and dragging it down under the table, then pushing it with my foot to try to get the sound as far away from myself as possible. I squeezed Spider's arm hard and said, "Oh, my turn. I really have to go. Now." I meant it. The savvy and ever-vigilant Spider perked his ears. "What's that noise? You got a watch going off?" Thank God I didn't answer, for his question was directed to Tony Navarro, who was looking at his wrist and frowning. Under the table, I let out some of the shoulder strap and with my foot softly kicked the purse in Tony's direction. I hoped I didn't sound nervous as I said, "Excuse me, girl for the John here." Purposely, I brushed my breast against Spider's arm to distract him from the shrill beep tone. The others were still laughing and fawning over Georgette. I breathed a silent prayer of thanks that Frankie Eyelashes wasn't there with his gun, and I kept pushing against Spider toward the edge of the booth. "Now, wait a minute, baby girl. Where are you heading to? You want the Spider to come along and help you?" That's the last thing I wanted. Panic was setting in as the piercing tone continued under the table. Beep! I clutched one end of my bag's shoulder strap under the table, pouted my lips, and scrunched my face into a look of bathroom desperation. My anguish was real. "Spider, I mean it. I gotta go." "Oh, all right, sweetheart. Tony, turn off that damn watch, will ya?" Navarro was alternately scratching his head and tapping at his watch. I slid out of the booth as Spider stood on the end, giving me a courtly gesture with his arm, and as I rose, I pulled my bag after me from underneath. Tony was just starting to say, "Spider, that ain't my watch. I got the alarm off. What is that?" The last couple of sentences got fainter as I walked away at a smart pace, as calmly as I could, swinging my bag out in front of me and then clutching it tightly to my chest. "Please, God, don't let them call me back. Please, God, don't let them come after me. Please, God, don't let them put it together. And please, God, don't let me feel Spider's iron hand grabbing me. Please, please, please." My whole upper body was virtually clenched as I rounded the corner of the Hideaway bar. My temples were pounding. I'll leave it there. You gotta get the book to read what happened.
Very interesting. There's a few things that it was interesting. I mean, for the audience to know that back then, Las Vegas was run by the mob. So,
Oh, absolutely.
You know,
and
so-
Tahoe, too.
well, I mean, yeah, all of that. But I mean, that had to be really interesting.
It was very interesting. It was a moment.
All right, you guys, you want to come over there? What are we gonna do? There's something deep in there.
This is exactly the way they talked, and they really were boys.
I know.
This was a group of guys that was they were like right out of Damien Runyon.
Yeah.
You know, they were real guys from the hood. And
Yes.
they were kind of thugs in a way, but in a kind of a appealing way, and they were so funny. I mean, I can see why Sinatra loved having them around. They were so funny. Their humor was ribald, you know, it was kind of a low echelon type of references, but oh my God, it was hilarious, and it was actually really fun to hang around with them, even though I was pretending that I belonged there when I totally did not, and I had ulterior reasons.
Yeah, they didn't know that. But and Pat Henry was actually the number 2 man
Yes.
when Sinatra wasn't there. He was in, you know, he was in
He
control.
you are so right, that is exactly true, because they all kowtowed to Pat Henry until Sinatra showed up.
Until Sinatra showed up, yeah.
And when Sinatra got there, then Pat was just one of the obsequious henchmen, you know, he was
I think he was Italian too.
I believe he was, yeah,
You
definitely.
know, it's like Pat Cooper was Italian.
Yes, Pat
is
Cooper,
Italian.
another one.
Yeah.
You know what, I should tell you, I've been sort of sorting through some of the old interview tapes. I had this giant box of other bags full of cassettes from old interviews that I did in the years before the National Enquirer used to require us to send in our interviews.
Right.
So they would have the research department, you know, refer to our actual tapes to make sure we were quoting everything exactly
Right.
and accurately. But before that, you know, up until I would say maybe about 1982, we just kept our tapes, and I just used to throw them in a bag, you know, and so
Why did you do that?
well, I just thought they were good to have, and I thought, well, maybe I
okay.
can use them again, tape over them or something, and I just never got around to it. I just always got new tapes, and so I just, don't ask me why I kept them and just didn't
Right,
just
you just kept
throw them away. I just kept them in the closet, and so I finally took them out, and I've been going through them, and oh my God, I cannot believe all of these sit-down interviews with very famous people. A lot of them aren't even here anymore. Dick Clark, and I don't know, let me just think who else. Oh, Wayne Newton, Liberace, Debbie Reynolds, Michael Landon. You know, they're
Right.
the actual, Michael Jackson, they're the actual tapes that I made with these people at that time.
You have to do something with them. I mean,
Yeah,
I
Well,
would
they-
imagine they'd be worth a lot of money.
maybe. We're
Yeah.
doing snippets. I have a website now, which is
So
www.barbarasternig.com.
spell your last name.
Sternig, not Sterning, Sternig. It's just like Howard Stern, put IG at the end. Sternig. Anyway, it's barbarasternig.com, and we have, we've been kind of just pulling out maybe little 3-minute snippets from
Right,
some of
yeah.
the tapes bit by bit and putting them up there. I think the Liberace, a little snippet from Liberace's on there, in which he talks about how he actually, did you know that he discovered Barbra Streisand?
No, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either until
In New York he discovered her, or in Vegas?
I believe in, you know,
Because she used to play the bats
the best. That could be where he found
in
her.
the village.
But
yeah.
he said she was so timid, and she had, you know, no sense of how to dress, and she kind of had a poochy belly, and she
Yeah.
didn't know how to hide that with a higher waistline, and he guided her to some stylists and had her hair done correctly. He's talking about this. It was really, I forgot all about that in that interview, but
Wow.
I don't think it went into my story at that time.
That I never heard. I know the audience probably, a lot
Yeah,
of people don't realize that. I know she used to sing in a place called the Bats.
the Bats, yes. Didn't
It
Bette
was a
Midler?
gay club. Bette Midler too. It
Absolutely.
was either that, or there was another one too. Because I've been there,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was Greenwich Village. It was
That wasn't the
closer.
Mark IV Bats, was it? No, I don't
On
think.
St. Mark's.
No, no, this was a different Bats.
Oh.
Yeah.
I forget that there was another place too, where she used to sing, and a lot of back in 1969, 61, 62.
Oh, and she was just before she really hit it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so. Maybe he discovered her there.
Yeah, I think so. It's very interesting. And then I asked Liberace a very telling question. He was talking about how sometimes stars get facelifts, which later in his life he did too. But I said, he said the ladies like to view themselves in a certain way. And I said, well, how do you view yourself? And he answers the question on that tape. It's a very, very interesting response. Go to barbarasternig.com and you can hear that. You can click onto the...
Yeah, that sounds really interesting.
Yeah.
I too. Interesting life. I mean, how it was a different era back then.
Oh my God, John!
I mean,
It's a,
He was just flamboyant. He
it was
wasn't
so
gay.
flamboyant. It really was. It was flamboyant for the performers.
Yes.
It was flamboyant for the
Yeah.
reporters covering them. The world around us was flamboyant. It was not so so
time.
observed.
You're right.
The technology was, it was very. I mean, we had a little tape recorder in a purse. That was the technology. That was very cutting edge.
Imagine today's technology, what you
Oh my God! Well, that's why they can't keep anything private. That's why people come in with their little devices and they can tape
Yeah,
live
could.
performances. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's just, it's true.
yeah. Although
But back
I did,
then, it was just amazing.
I must say, I did that.
Squashed.
I did that tape recorder thing. I went to Elvis Presley's show many times at the Las Vegas Hilton, and also down at the Fabulous Forum one time. But anyway, I always had that little tape recorder, and I was working on an Elvis story, and I had the tape recorder in my purse, so I turned it on and taped his whole show. I have a tape of his Las Vegas Hilton show.
Really?
A couple years before he died, yeah. Very interesting to listen to again, It wasn't that great, actually. He was drug addicted, and he was fumbling his words.
Yeah,
He wasn't at his best.
He was out of it. He was so bloated.
Yes, he
And
was.
he was just going through the motions. And
Yeah.
And I would imagine a lot of it was lip syncing too.
Well, I don't think he lip synced, but he used to just go off on tangents. And I remember one of those shows in the later years, he was studying yoga with a guy by the name of Mike Stone, who his wife Priscilla went off with, actually. And Elvis still kept on studying with Mike. He had Mike Stone come out, and they spent part of Elvis Presley's show doing not yoga, what they call karate. Karate moves.
yeah.
Not yoga. It was.
I remember that he was into that yoga. I mean, the karate.
Karate, yes.
And it was interesting.
And he was showing how he knew how to do karate. I mean, you know, we came to this show to hear him.
Yeah, when
sing.
he became a sheriff or something, and President Nixon made him.
Oh, remember this? He made him a representative of the war on drugs.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, it was ironic.
It really was.
People did not realize that Elvis, I don't think people who didn't actually go to his show and hear him muffling his words and kind of stumbling, forgetting the lyrics to his famous songs, you gathered that something was amiss, you know. However, if you didn't go to that show and you just heard his records, you had no clue that he was in the depths of that, you know.
And it's you know, today, with today's technology, might have saved his life.
Could have.
Because he would have been outed.
Yeah.
A lot, you know,
Faster.
with the cameras and everything, everybody had it. And
yeah. However, you know, the thing is, Elvis had a certain destiny that I think he followed and he believed. His mother, Gladys, to whom he was devoted all of his life, had died when she was only 42. And this devastated Elvis. If you remember, Elvis died at 42. It's almost like a death wish.
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it at the same time as his mother.
Yes, the same age as his mother.
It was only years later that I really appreciated his singing.
Yeah.
And I saw him singing with Sinatra and on stage at him shows.
Yeah.
And I liked the guy, you know, but you know, all the girls liked him when I was a teenager, so he was a threat.
Right, correct, yeah. Not all the girls that like preppy guys probably didn't like Elvis.
Well, all the ones I
Liked
knew.
Pat Boone, you know.
Well, I didn't go after the girls that liked Pat Boone.
No, of course not, of course not. The ones that liked Elvis, those
No,
were the more
you're
adventurous types. But you know, Elvis was a great innocent when he first came forth in his career. And I remember he was it Steve Allen? I remember seeing this snippet, and I thought it was so sad that Steve Allen, who poo-pooed this idol of the kids, you know, God, Elvis was so gorgeous. He was so handsome. He was just, he really was an idol, and he was so beautiful with that black hair and those lips and that skin, and oh gosh. Anyway, he came out, and You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog was the song that was the big top of the hit parade.
The churches went against it, right?
Yeah, I think so, but I don't remember that part. But Steve Allen, and I've seen this in some different analogy shows, has Elvis come out, and he's got like a bloodhound sitting on top of a pedestal, and he has Elvis sing his song to this poor, sad-eyed, loppy-eared bloodhound. It was kind of humiliating for Elvis. I mean, he was a huge superstar, and it was kind of demeaning to him, I thought.
I wonder if Steve Allen meant it that way, because I don't think so.
Probably didn't. No. He probably just thought it would be amusing.
Yeah.
An amusing way to.
That's an interesting topic. Let's come back with that one.
Yeah.